Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Tuesday, and all of our guests today, including Craig Button, standing by, brought to you by our title sponsor. So happy, so thankful to them. They're aboard. Able Auctions, ableauctions.ca. Jonathan Lekkerimaki, sent back down to Abbotsford. Canucks starting a 2-game road trip tonight in Dallas as the season winds down. 8 points out with 5 games left as we bring in TSN Scouting Director Craig Button. Craig, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really, really good on this Tuesday in April. Hope things are good with both of you.
Lovely. Very good. Jonathan Lekkerimaki, Craig, we just mentioned the news. He's been sent back down to Abbotsford by the Canucks. 3 goals so far this season with the big club. He's got 19 in Abbotsford. Just your thoughts on his development and the way this organization has handled him.
Well, right now, you talk to your coach, and in this case, Patrick talking to Rick, and saying, here we're at in Abbotsford. Are we going to use him on the road trip? There's no sense in traveling him all the way to Dallas and not having him play when we can leave him back here, get acclimated with Abbotsford. I think for Jonathan, it's been a really good, positive year for his development. And I don't think you look at it in goals. I think that he's been a good player in the American Hockey League. He's shown those flashes in the National Hockey League. So now he's going to leave at the end of this regular season with the Vancouver Canucks and those experiences. And he's going to be able to apply them through the summer, understanding, okay, yeah, I got to be a little bit quicker. I got to be a little bit stronger. I got to find a way to be a little bit more consistent. I've watched Jonathan for a long time, and I've seen these kind of stages in his career, like, from a 16-year-old to a 17-year-old to an 18-year-old to a 19-year-old. I'm seeing it now in pro hockey. He kind of dips a toe in, and he wants to make sure that, he's comfortable before he dives in. And I get that. There's different stages of maturity for him, physical. And I think he's going to come back next year a lot more ready to be a regular, consistent contributor for the Vancouver Canucks. And that's why I think that this year has been a positive growth development year for Jonathan. And I think ultimately the Vancouver Canucks will be beneficiaries of that. We all want the development line to go straight up, and we want it to go straight up fast. Yep. Everybody's different, but I this is what I've seen from Jonathan for 5 years, and I don't think it's any different now. And I think that there'll be real benefits for Jonathan and the Canucks in the years to come, as soon as next season.
Alex Ovechkin, 895 goals. Craig, you are TSN Scouting Director, former National Hockey League General Manager. You've worked in front offices. What was the scouting report on Alex Ovechkin going into that 2004 NHL draft when he was taken first overall?
Well, there was a pretty good debate, because the debate was Ovechkin the winger or Malkin the center. And they're both first ballot Hall of Famers. They both had excellent success in their league. I'm going to share, we always put a lot of stock on the U17 tournament, watching players as underage players. And there was a tournament I believe it was in Cape Breton in 2002. So we had a couple of scouts there watching the next group of players. One of our scouts, who is not in any way, shape, or form prone to hyperbole. In fact, he resists a lot of that. He wrote in his scouting report, "This guy has the qualities to be one of the great goal scorers of all time." And he didn't say he'd be the greatest, but he thought that he had Brett Hall qualities, and that was as a 16-year-old. And I think we all saw that. Chris Pronger at the 2006 Olympics in Torino, I was talking to him on the day Canada wasn't playing. I was asking him about Ovechkin, and he said, "Oh boy," he goes, "this guy can go around you. He can go through you, or he can go over you." Alex is a big man, and he had that power in him. He's changed his game now. You don't see the big, rugged, physical play that we saw early on in his career where he ran over people. But it wasn't just the skill. It was also that he had this size advantage that made it really hard to handle him. And he carved out space for himself. And, Chris Pronger, Hall of Famer, great player. You look back at it. I never thought the record could be broken, 894 goals. But because you think about what you have to do for such a long period of time. Well, Alex has done that. And I'll add this just one little bit. The first half of last year, there was a real significant signs that this could be the decline of Alexander Ovechkin. Well, his last 36 games last year, he scored 23 goals. And in his last 97 games, he's had 65 goals. I don't think there's any decline in Alexander Ovechkin.
Yep. Craig, that scout that you talked about, would he be available for the Canucks to hire, do you know, by any chance?
Well, he might be. He is working still, but, so, maybe this is leverage for him now.
There you go.
Hey, Craig, I want to get back to the Canucks, and, they're going to be one of the biggest things on their to-do list this summer is a second-line center. But, Craig, you've been a general manager in this league. Those guys, don't grow on trees, and they're very expensive. Very, very expensive. I don't know how they're going to get out of this situation where, they think that a team's just going to hand them a second-line center. They might have to do some uncomfortable things here and offer up some roster players or whatever. But, boy, that's going to be tough to get a second-line center this summer, Craig, is it not?
My good friend Paul Bordelot, who played in the NHL, scouted for a long time, he said, yeah, that's difficult. He goes, there's not a 7-Eleven hockey store where you just walk down the second line center aisle and pick one off the shelves. They're hard to get, and they're hard to, there's a cost to it too, as you just mentioned, Rick. And so when you start to look at what you have to do, and Jim Rutherford, when they were talking about the JT Miller trade, and he said, we're going to have to do multiple moves here to try to get our team back into contending space. And it wasn't just about making a trade with respect to JT Miller. It was also about what's your team going to look like in years to come. And certainly that is an area that they're not the only team looking like that. I mean, if you look at the Nashville Predators, they're looking for a first-line center and a second-line center.
There you go.
There's a lot of teams that are in the same boat as the Vancouver Canucks. So you're right. And I'll also use another word too, Rick, is that they have to be willing to be bold. You have to be willing to be bold. And I know, I lived it. We did it in Dallas. And we were looking for a center to play with Mike Modano. We knew we had a superstar in Modano, but we needed another center. Fedorov and Yzerman were in Detroit. Forsberg and Sacker were in Colorado. And Joe Nieuwendyk became available because he was holding out in Calgary. And we have to swallow hard and really, really clench our teeth, to when we were willing to trade Jerome McGinley. Because listen, I'm not going to tell you we thought Jerome would be a 600 goal scorer. That'd be a lie. But we knew Jerome was going to be a good player. But the price to get a second line center was significant. So it wasn't just uncomfortable, it was also being bold. And it worked out for the Calgary Flames. It worked out for the Dallas Stars. But and people say, well, you won a Stanley Cup. 3 years later, we won a Stanley Cup. When we made that trade in December of 95, we were on our way to being the fifth worst team in the National Hockey League. This wasn't a move to put us over the top. It was a move, and I'll paraphrase Jim Rutherford again, to put us into a spot where we could be in a contending area. And we knew we couldn't do it unless we got another center. We were really lucky to get Joe.
Hey, Craig, the Canucks have 5 games to go, but they haven't signed their coach to an extension yet long term. It's not ideal. We haven't asked you about it, but what are your thoughts of this contract situation between the Canucks and Tocchet?
Yeah. It reminds me a little bit of Bruce Boudreau too. Bruce came in that year and had a great run here and everything that went with it, and then Jim had come in, and is Bruce leaving? Is Bruce staying? And then ultimately Bruce stayed, and then the change happened. It feels a little bit similar to that. And when I look at Rick, I think Rick's done a really, really good job with everything that's gone on in Vancouver this year. But when timing in a lot of cases becomes paramount, and in this case, the fact that the Philadelphia Flyers have a job opening, that Rick Tocchet is the quintessential Philadelphia Flyer. That doesn't mean that he's leaving Vancouver or Vancouver Canucks don't want him or Rick doesn't want to be there. But these are factors that start to come into play. And certainly, okay, what's the plan for the Canucks going ahead? Where does Rick fit into that? What does a contract look like? These are all factors that have to be discussed and debated and what's best for everybody with respect to that. But make no mistake about it, Rick Tocchet, wherever he's coaching next year, and I think the Vancouver Canucks have been clear they'd like him to come back. He's a good coach, and I think that Rick has reached a point in his career after a couple of stops where you can look at him and say, "Yep, yeah, he's one of the league's really good, strong coaches." So, it's sometimes you have to look at it and go, "Okay, if we don't have Rick, who do we get?" That becomes a lot harder to do. People talk about changing coaches. That's fine. You can have that discussion, but then the next conversation is who comes in to coach. And that might be something that becomes really significant in these discussions as well.
Craig, awful news in the world of hockey the last 24 hours as we finish off with this interview. Your memories of the late Greg Millen, who has left us at the age of 67.
Millsy was a good friend and somebody I was really fortunate to, share a friendship with, and we worked together. He worked with us with the Minnesota North Stars and the Dallas Stars for a stretch of time before he went into a very, very, very successful broadcast career. And, when he came into Calgary in recent years, we'd always get together for breakfast or lunch or even a beer after a game. And Greg was just such a passionate person. He was we talk about hockey and we talk about the passion of hockey and everything. Greg was passionate about his family. He was passionate about life, and he was passionate about always learning. He went back to school. He got a master's degree in leadership. He became a teacher. He worked with a lot of different organizations and individuals and helping them develop leadership. And you get to see the part of him that's in the public sphere, but you don't get to see the other parts of Greg. And it just was gut wrenching to hear that news yesterday, because it obviously it was sudden, and you think about somebody so young passing. It just puts a tear in your eye, puts tears in your eyes, and he'll be sorely missed, because Greg was all kinds of awesome.
God bless him. Thanks so much, Craig. We appreciate this. Talk to you next week.
Thanks.
You bet.